Welcome to Mr. Wilson Live. This is a place where the brightest minds meet to discuss biology and, of course, HSB. Today, we're going to be looking at the pedigree chart, or one might say family tree. We do invite everyone to come on over so we can have a good time. As usual with genetics, we're going to be having a practical class. So it's very important for you to grab your book and your pen, or your pen and pencil, and come along and join the conversation. If you have not yet liked, share, or subscribe, it might be time to do so now. When you do subscribe, remember to hit that notification bell and select all so you'll be notified as soon as there is a new publication. We're going to be publishing on a Tuesday and Thursday between 6 and 7 in the evening. So you want to ensure that you set your phone for notification so that you will receive the notification as soon as these videos are available. Again, thanks much for joining. Let me do the roll call, and we're going to be jumping right into the lesson as we look at the pedigree chart. As usual, Powell is here early. Cheryl is also here. Brathwaite is also here. Brathwaite is always here. Barnett is here. I said Powell already. Treasure is also here. Please invite the others to come on over because we're going to be going through this show very, very quickly. We're hoping that we will be able to get out of here within the hour. All right, so how we doing? Tell me how you're doing in the chat before we get started. I really don't want to just jump into the show. We have to look at that side of you. How is it? Hi, Grant. How you doing? How is everybody? How is it on your side? We had some rain today in Jamaica. How's it doing wherever you are? I'm great. Wonderful. I like to hear that. Anybody else? How is the study coming on? Everybody doing well with the studies? Excited for class? Wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. Barnett, you're good. I'm happy that you're good because I remember your situation. So I'm really happy that you're good. All right. I'm good, teacher. All right, wonderful, Cheryl. We're happy to hear that. I always want to know that everybody is good and ready and happy to start because this evening class might be a little drag, but we're going to get through it. I'm going to be taking 3 classes to teach the pedigree chart, which usually start within minutes. But of course, I want everybody to be a part of it rather than just to be talking and persons leaving here. Okay, Powell, study coming on good, wonderful. Treasure, I'm okay. All right, Grant, doing great, wonderful. So everybody is good and the study is coming on very, very well. Can I tell you, I looked at the biology syllabus today and I tell you guys, the bio student must be very, very happy. We have the pedigree chart to remember, and we have, not the pedigree chart, we have the, what is it called? The lymphatic system and transporting plants to look at. We still remember those, those are the only topics that we have not touched. And I think we have disease to look at with biology. We have the mosquito life cycle to look at with biology. And we have natural selection to look at with biology, genetic engineering to look at with biology. You know that these are not big topics. And then we are out of the woods. But for HSB, we have a little longer time to go. But the bio syllabus is almost finished. Trust me. So we should be revising now. I realize that persons are not watching the videos. I don't know why. I don't know if you don't know where to find them. So as we wait on the others to come, I'll just tell you very quickly. To find the videos, all you need to do is to click on that blue icon that is beside any of my videos. The icon will say CSEC Biology TCP. It will take you to the back end of the channel. Now you can choose to click on video and search among 206 videos for your favorite videos. Or you may choose to click on the live, Mr. Wilson Live, which we'll be renaming shortly, Mr. Wilson Live, and choose your favorite live. They are there in name of a content that we covered and also volume. So you shouldn't be having any problem with the volume there. Now, there are many animations there. There are animations for labs, persons who are doing CSEC biology. There's a whole lot of lab. I like to talk about my ecology lab, which is a simulation, and I invite teachers to do that, being that we can't get the students to go out for a field trip. It is a real ecology lab with the computer showing the quadrant, and you can choose whichever of the organism you want to sample with. You could sample with yellow, you could sample with blue, you could sample with pink, and you could put a multiplier to it. So I invite teachers to join us and look at the many animations that we have for the labs. We have all the labs that are supposed to be covered for CXC this year on the channel. Just go to the biology experiment and you will see all those labs on the channel. I also have mark schemes for the labs, and we also have the skills that are to be tested for CXC, which include planning and design. We have a lab up for that on the skill as well. We have measurement and manipulation, observation, reporting and recording, drawing. All those are on the channel as to how they are supposed to be done. And also we have examples of these labs written up. So those persons who are writing labs for CXC, you could just go onto my channel and choose to look at the lab skill or choose to look at the particular lab. And there's also, might I also remind us, there is also the mark scheme. There's a mark scheme from CXC that is on the channel. You could look at that. That is what the moderator is going to use to moderate the books. And there are also simpler mark schemes that I have done and will be doing more, so that nobody should be getting less than 9 or 10 out of 10 for your lab. So invite your teachers to come on over, invite your friends to come on over, and make sure that you understand what is happening. So everybody is here now. So Grant Powell, yes, good evening, everyone. Anderson, I'm seeing you. Pinedo, I'm seeing you as well. And De Sosa, I am seeing you. So this evening, we're going to be looking at the pedigree chart, and I'm going to jump right into the lesson. Now, just to remind you, video for the pedigree chart is supposed to be out by Tuesday. The information that I'm going to give you this evening, you will find more on in the video for the pedigree chart. I'm going to be doing a whole lot of stuff. Now, might I also say, not to pat my own shoulder, you will find more information in this video than you will find in your CSEC textbook for the pedigree chart. So it's a comprehensive thing that I have done to ensure that students understand, and teachers who are having a little jitter here and there, they should be able to follow, having watched this video that we'll be releasing on the pedigree chart. A lot said, let's jump right into the lesson. So the pedigree chart is also known or called or referred to as the family tree. So the pedigree chart is called the family tree. So some might say pedigree chart, some might say family tree. Now, what's the significance of a pedigree chart? The truth is the pedigree chart shows genetic link between or among parents, offspring, and sibling. And it could also be extended to adopted children, and we could also look at deceased. We could look at things like twins, and all these we are going to be capturing in the lesson today. So you're going to be seeing a little more than is in your textbook. Be prepared to write. I'm going to be showing you some things on the screen, and you'll have to copy them from the screen in your textbook or in your notebook so that you can move along comfortably. Another thing that we could say about the pedigree chart is that it helps in tracking genetic trait, right? That is what the pedigree chart does. One of the key things is helps in tracking genetic traits. Now, it also helps to determine the genotype and phenotype of offsprings. Now, we're going to be looking at some symbols that we use in the pedigree chart, and there's no pedigree chart without symbols. So let us not even start to think about it. I want you to just write something in your book before I show you. I know that you guys can draw very well. I want you to draw a circle. Nice little neat circle in your book. And beside that nice little circle, you're going to write female. When you're finished, just say finish. Just write it in the chat. So you draw a nice, so your heading in the book is going to be pedigree chart symbols. So these are the symbols that we use in the pedigree chart. All right, so you need to have that. So you're going to draw a nice little circle, or a nice circle, good enough size circle. And then right beside it, you might put a dash and then you write female. Or you might write the circle represents the female in the pedigree chart or on a pedigree chart. You could write that beside it as well. I think it's a little different. All right, beautiful. I think it's a little different than the Punnett square. The Punnett square might be very, very useful in solving the pedigree chart. We're going to be seeing that. All right. Then I want you to skip line or two preferably, or three, and you're going to draw a square, right? And you're going to write a little dash, then you're going to write represents the male in the pedigree chart. When you're finished, I want you to write finish. All right, because we're not going to be wasting any time, or else your revision is going to be difficult with too much buffer information. All right, beautiful. So we drew a circle which represented, or which represents female. Then we drew a square which represents male. All right, finish coming in. Beautiful. Nothing should be in these circles, or nothing should be in the circle, and nothing should be in the square. Can I talk about that very quickly before we move on to other symbols? Yes, no? Are you ready? Should I go right ahead? Finish, beautiful. Finish. So I'm waiting on everybody to finish, and then I will tell you what I have to say about these two. So we're talking about the circle and the square, and we're saying that good. Somebody say I can move right along. So the circle represents the female, and the square represents the male. But how do I remember this in an exam? All right, simply put on the road, anywhere you are in the world, we use some crude terms on the road to refer to male, and sometimes some gentler terms to refer to female. Like we talk about women being curvaceous like a Coca-Cola bottle. I've heard that around the place, having nice shape and all of that. Once you talk about a woman, it's usually a nice shape. So you talk about a nice shape, you're thinking about more smooth edge, right? So if you think about a circle, it is all smooth going right around. So you always remember that smooth, nice one, well polished, represent the female. But if you think about men tend to be a little rough and a little jagged around the edge. There are some of us who really have real hard jobs. We probably work on the farm, we probably work in construction. So we're a little rough, I like Mr. Wilson, your face beard up and your ear want to cut and all that. We're a little rough. Had this been a woman, she would have a nice hairstyle and all makeup and eyelash and all of that. Really smooth women would be. But men are really, really rough. So men tend to be rough just like the square. If you observe, the square has 4 sharp corners, right? And these sharp corners, rough, use it to remember that men, we're a little rough around the edge. We're not as smooth and nice and dandy as women. So the circle represents the female and the square represents the male. Are we all good with that? Yes, no, let's move right along. All right, so now we are going to be drawing again. So you're going to skip in 2 or 3 lines again. And again, you're going to draw a circle. And when you draw this circle, you can do either of the following. You can streak it, and let me hope that everybody know what streak means. You draw some line in the circle, that is streak. And you might see it on the biology paper as being shaded, but I hate to teach students to shade when drawing you don't shade. So you could just streak it, or you want to cross hatch it, or you want to stipple it, but make sure that the inside of that circle is all denoted, that it is different than the empty circle. If you want to shade it, it is fine because you're not submitting this for drawing. All right. Now, the circle that is shaded or that is highlighted represents the trait that we are investigating. The circle or the square that on the inside of it, it's all shaded or highlighted, represents the trait that we are following. So you're going to draw a circle and you're going to write, this represents female with the trait that is being studied. Then you're going to draw the square and you're going to cross hatch, stipple, streak, shade, whichever one you want to do. And you're going to also write male with trait being studied. Beautiful. Now, these are probably common ones in your textbook. Really common one in your textbook. But Mr. Wilson is not paid to teach you just that. I have to take it a little further. Having done all 4 diagrams, you are going to get now to the 5th diagram. You are going to draw now a circle And through the center of that circle from outside to the other outside, coming through the circle, you are just going to draw a line going through that circle. Now that line going through the circle or this particular diagram mean that this person is deceased or dead. It means that this person is deceased or dead. You can't say Mr. Wilson did not tell you that because I did. So you can't say it wasn't in the textbook and Mr. Wilson didn't teach you because I was told that I am supposed to teach you the pedigree chart. So I'm teaching you as much as can come on your exams. Beautiful. We're going to continue. Again, I want you to draw a circle, another circle. Skip 2 or 3 lines and you're going to draw another circle. Now for half of that circle, you are going to shade it, cross hatch, or stipple. For half of the circle, you are going to shade it, cross hatch, or stipple. This represents the heterozygous state of a particular trait. This represents the heterozygous state of a particular trait. That's a trait that is being studied. Or you could also write that it represents the carrier. You could also write that it represents the carrier. Now you drew a circle just now. Now you're going to draw a square and you're going to shade a half of that square just as you did for the circle. And again, you're going to write that this is the heterozygous state. When you're finished, just write, I am finished, so that I can show you my expectation before we move on to some more symbols that might not be familiar to you. Are you finished? Just type finish in the chat for me so that we can go right along. Please be reminded that this is Mr. Wilson Live. We're streaming from Kingston, Jamaica. We stream on a Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 5:05 p.m. The show is free up until exam, but for persons who need private tutor, you can see me on the back end. My email address is there. We can arrange to have that. But outside of that, our weekly classes, they are free. We also have videos on the channel that you could go on over and participate. We are inviting anyone, teacher, student, whatever group, to be a part of the products we offer or to consume the product we offer. All right, very good. We're finished. Sir, repeat the female part. All right, well, the female part. All right, the female part, all that I said was that you're supposed to draw a circle, shade a half of it, and you're going to write that it means that it's a carrier or it's the heterozygous state for the trait being studied. And then I said you were supposed to do the same thing for the square. So the first set of things I gave you should look like this. You should have all that for the first set of things that I gave you. All right, so the circle at the top representing female, then the square representing male, then the circle with the streaks inside represent the female affected by the trait that is being studied. The square there represent a male affected by the trait being studied, and that circle with the line going through represents someone that is dead, or one might say that is deceased. Remember, at any time you could just print screen to catch this very quickly. All right, so here we go. Beautiful. All right, so another thing I gave you just now that Niti had asked me to repeat is this one. All right, so these are carriers, are the heterozygous states. And of course, you could see a picture like this anywhere, paper 2, paper 1, it could be just about anywhere. So you want to ensure that you know those. All right, beautiful. So we move on with some symbols. We have to get the symbols right. We have to get the symbols right. Now, the symbols I showed you just now, for the greater part, those are the big ones. All right, there are some other big ones that we're going to come up with. So I'm going to be showing you something different now. In this case, we're going to be drawing a circle again. And then to one side of that circle, you're going to draw a square bracket. Bop, bop, bop. They're going to bop, bop, bop. Square bracket to one side. And then to other side, you're going to also draw a square bracket. So the circle is going to be in the center of two square brackets. All right. I don't know the other name. I think they are square brackets. I am still learning about brackets and parentheses. I'm very sorry. All right. Now, this diagram represents a child that was adopted. All right. This circle in the square bracket represents a child that was adopted. All right. Now, this might be for further pedigree chart, but I'm going to give you it. You're going to draw a triangle. You're drawing now a triangle, and this triangle represents miscarriage. The triangle represents miscarriage. So you're drawing a triangle now, and it represents miscarriage. Beautiful. Let's move on. You're again going to skip 2 lines or 3, and you're going to draw a straight vertical line, not too long, a vertical line, and you're going to name that, or it should denote, descendant. So Anai is a descendant from me. I am a descendant from my father. My father is a descendant of my grandfather. So the straight line down represents descendant. All right? So that straight line looking like a 1 or a L or a I, that represents a descendant. Then I want you to skip another 2 or 3 lines, and I want you now to write a horizontal line. A horizontal line, and the horizontal line is going to represent marriage or sibling. So if I were supposed to have that line going across, it could mean my brothers and I, or my siblings and I, whichever way we want to do it, or it could mean mom and dad, that marriage line. Then the final one, which is going to be a little strange for a lot of persons. I don't know if it has ever been on the paper, but it's a part of the pedigree chart, so I must teach you. We're going to be drawing in the same line. Having skipped line, we're going to be drawing in the same line, just one here, one here. So we're going to be drawing a circle here, and we're going to be drawing a square here, pretty much about the same size. So a circle, a square, beside each other, pretty much the same size. And then we are going to draw lines from them to connect them at the top in a V shape. So the line is going to come from the top, from up here, and come down right into the middle of that, and attach right to the circle and attach to the square. What does that look like? I gave you this just now. So there we have it at the top. It represents twin. So when we have a twin in the pedigree chart, it is represented like that. All right, and you will see the adopted person there. You see the miscarriage there. You see the descendant line there. And of course, you will see the marriage or sibling line. So pretty much this is what I gave you just now. All the things there I had prepared for you. Remember, you can just take a quick screenshot, and of course, you should be fine moving on. All right, beautiful. So what I've just given you are the tools needed to solve the problems that we are going to be solving. So it would be boy and girl twin. Yes, that's a boy and girl twin. Beautiful. So if it was 2 girls, then it would be 2 circles. And if it was 2 boys, then it would be beautiful. I like that one. That's good. All right. So that's pretty much a tool I have given you for solving the pedigree chart. No. If it's a girl, you're going to have to remember, and it never changes. If it's a girl, it's going to be 2 circles. If it's boys, it's going to be 2 squares. All right. So of course you need to know what it is, because if it is sex link, it's going to be very important. So that is why we have to maintain that male female if it is twin or otherwise. All right, because we might be looking at a sex link trait and how it could affect the offspring. So pretty much we have to maintain that boy girl. Now, so there I have given you the outline are the basic framework for pedigree chart. We are now going to be upping on into the pedigree chart. Now, I started doing something earlier, but what happened is that I am using my pen, and I think I messed it up a little bit. But however, I have enough here for you to understand. So now that we have all of those all outlined, I am going to be now looking at the relationship. I'm going to be looking at a relationship. So I'm now going to be showing you the parts of a pedigree chart. So you know already how are the parts that make up the pedigree chart. But when we put them now together, I'm going to show you or give you the name for each part. Now, this is very, very important, because when the questions are asked, the question will be around the parts, the section, the generation, that type of thing. So of course you need to know. So I'm going to be showing you a picture of what I did just now. I'm going to be using a red marker, which has been giving me some trouble, to highlight some parts. So I'm going to be showing you first. Well, the diagram has pretty much everything. But let us start with the square and the circle at the top. And the square and the circle at the top, let me see if you can see. All right, I'm going to try to, this square and this circle, this line going across from square to circle represents the marriage line. In this case, it is the marriage line. So this is a union between mother and father. All right. Now, if you look over here, it is saying parents. Now, this here is parents. These represent the parent. This line drawn at the top was just to show you. You'll see it in the animation better. So this here represents the parents. Now, I want you to observe that there is a Roman numeral here, 1, and what that represents is the first generation. All right, so this is my parents. And then this is going to be the second generation. And as we go down, it will change from generation 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Now, I want you to also look at the sibling line. Now, this line going across is a sibling line, and generation 2 would have been the sibling. So these are pretty much the offspring, or these are pretty much, we call them descendant. But pretty much these are offspring from the parent here. Now, another thing I want to show you is the generation. I showed you the generation 1, 2, that is generation. I showed you the sibling line going across. I showed you descendant here, and I told you that this is parents and the line going across. So this line coming down is the descendant line. This vertical line here shows the descendant line. So pretty much it shows you the offspring. This line coming down here shows the offspring. Now, if you can't see that well, what it means is that when you watch the video, it will provide greater assistance. So I'm going to be showing you the sibling line. I'm just going to be drawing using my red marker to draw that. And then I'm going to be showing you, just highlight that here. And we could probably say that's that. I'm going to be using some arrowhead. And then this is going to be the descendant line. I hope it's not messy. All right. And then here is going to be the offspring. All right. So it probably would look something like that. I hope it's not messy. I hope you can identify. All right. So that is what was supposed to be, but I chose not to draw these things in because I didn't want to have start a problem. All right. Is everybody fine? Yes, no? All right. So good. Now we know the parts there. I am going to be showing you now. So that is pretty much a part of a pedigree chart. So I'm now going to be showing you an example. This is also an example of a pedigree chart. I showed you an example just now, but I'm going to be showing you an example without all these fancy dancy on it. A very simple thing. And then as we go, it's going to get a little bit more challenging until we get to that point where we are solving questions. All right, so here we go now. Our typical pedigree chart could look like this. They could get much bigger. So what you have here, just tell me, how many generations do we have here? How many generations? Tell me in the chat. I showed you the generation thing a while ago. So just tell me in the chat how many generations we have in this pedigree chart. All right. Sir, would there only be 3 generations? All right, you want to answer this first? How many generations do we have in this chart? Remember I said that a pedigree chart could be of any size, you know? It could be really, really big or really, really smart. So as a limitation, I wouldn't even put a limitation on it for now. All right, but I want to know for this particular pedigree chart, how many generations do we have? All right, so Dana is saying 3. Macmillan is saying 3. Barnett is saying 3. Powell is saying 3. What about the others? You're not agreeing? You're not in agreement? All right, yes. It is actually 3 generations that we have here. This, of course, would be the first generation with the parents, and then first set of sibling, and then we have another generation here as somebody has been introduced from a new family over here. Now, is it a male or female that is introduced? Is that male or female that is introduced to the parent, the first family? Who joins the family, a male or a female? All right, tell me in the chat there. I want to know who joins the family. Is it a male or female that would have joined the family? Is that male or female? All right, Macmillan is saying that a female joined the family. Anybody else? Who joined the family, male or female? Barnett is also saying female. Anybody else? I'd love to know who joined the family. Come on, guys. Who joined the family? Look at the diagram. Cheryl is saying female. Who joined the family? Continue. I want to know who joined the family. Who joined this family? So remember, we had this big family first. I could just put some red in it to show you the first. No, I can't. You have to look at it and identify it yourself. All right. So good. All right. Very good. I agree with you. A female joined the family, which is this circle out here. Now, I want you to tell me in this genetic, in this Punnett square, oh my, sorry, in this pedigree chart, I want you to tell me how many males do we have in this pedigree chart? How many males? No, it is not the male that joined, it is actually the female. This female over here actually joined the family. So how many males do we have in this pedigree chart? How many males? All right, somebody said 5 males. We have 5 males. You sure? All right, some persons are saying 4. Some persons are saying 5. Dana, folks, what represents the male versus the female? What symbol do we use to represent the male? Powell, what symbol do we use to represent the male? Powell, what symbol do we use to represent the male? All right, beautiful. So here, this pedigree chart has 4 male. All right, 4 males. So then how many females do we have on this chart? How many females do we have on the chart? Tell me how many females we have on the chart. All right, I'm going to move the chart. Just tell me. How many females? All right, some persons are saying 5. All right, beautiful. So now I want you to identify. I want you to tell me. Oh, just give me 1 second. Just let me write something there. 1, 2, 3. It's usually written like this: 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want you to look at number 3. What is the status, the health status of number 3, being that we're looking at a trait? We're looking at a recessive trait. What is the status of 3? Status as to heterozygous, homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive. Looking at 3, what's the status there? Which of the 3 would it be? 3. All right, Dana folks is saying heterozygous. And if it's heterozygous, it is a carrier as well. Matt Millen is saying heterozygous. Anybody else? All right, good. It's heterozygous, and it is heterozygous because only half of the square is shaded. Only half, so it tells us that it is heterozygous. All right. Now, if you look at the other 2, they are affected by the trait. They are fully affected by the trait that is being studied. Now, please be reminded, the traits here is not about good or bad. It's just about studying a trait, right? It's like studying a town. There are 10 persons in Alpha Tree and there are 20 persons in downtown. It doesn't make any one of them good or bad. But if we were supposed to study violence, that would have been something different. So when we're studying, you must be sure what it is that we're studying. All right? Another thing I want to point out about the traits or about a pedigree chart, we are looking at offsprings or descendant. Please be reminded that it does not mean that all the offsprings were born at the same time. Hence, in solving, you have to look at the possibility for an offspring to be any of the 4 of the F1 generation. So if you were supposed to use a pedigree chart to solve, if you were supposed to use a Punnett square, if you were supposed to use a Punnett square to solve for any of the offspring, you should take it that this offspring could be any of the 4 from the F1 generation. It is not a case that all these offsprings were born at the same time. What we know is that all these offspring, they are children of mother and father here. All right? So please make sure you understand that. If you don't know, it could cause a little problem when you are going to use a Punnett square to solve the pedigree chart or to solve these diagrams. Now, I'm going to be showing you something. There's this thing that you need to know about traits and a pedigree chart. And this is like a law. And you have to follow this. You have to always remember it. So that when you see that pedigree chart, be it 1, 2, or 3 generations, well, 3 generations usually for this case or more, you will know exactly what it is that I am dealing with. Am I dealing with a dominant trait? Or am I dealing with a recessive trait? Now, one thing about the dominant trait is that the trait will never skip a generation. The trait that we're studying, once it's a dominant trait, it will always be reflected in the phenotype for all the generations. So if you look here at this diagram, you are observing that the trait is in all the generation 1, 2, and 3. please be reminded that the trait that we're looking for or studying is usually represented in the shaded square or circle, whichever. Please be reminded that the circle represents female, and of course, the square represents male. The shaded stipples, cross hatch, whichever you want to use, represents the trait that is being studied. It does not represent anything, whether it doesn't represent recessive or dominant, it is representing the trait. Now, the trait could be recessive or dominant, but please be reminded that it represents a trait. So you need to know what trait is being represented. Now, if you see something like this on your exam, and they were supposed to ask you, what's the trait? Is it recessive or dominant? The fact that it appeared in all three generations, no generation is skipped. We know that this is a dominant trait. Somebody say amen for me. This is very, very important. The Lord needs to know about this, that Mr. Wilson said it. So just say amen in the thing there so the church can go on. Everybody is asleep, so nobody hearing the pastor. I don't understand. Nobody's saying amen. All right, so the key point here is that if it's a dominant trait, it will never skip a generation. All right, beautiful. Thank you very much, church. I feel the power now. I feel the power of teaching. Yeah, I feel the power of teaching now. So we can move right along. So we're looking now at the recessive trait. Now, with the recessive trait, the trait might skip a generation. If it's a recessive trait, it will or might skip a generation. The dominant trait will not skip any generation. It will make itself appear in all the phenotype, in the phenotype, not all, in the phenotype for all the generation. Now, in the recessive trait, you're observing here that the trait turned up in the third generation because the trait is able to skip a generation if it is a recessive trait. So if it is a recessive trait, it can skip a generation. I do hope that you have, if you don't have it yet, you can look at the video come out Tuesday and make sure you have it unlocked. When I'm finished with you here, you should be able to solve all the genetic questions. I have been very slow. I've never been so slow doing genetics, never. All right, but we are doing well. So it would we're not looking at male and female now. When we are looking at male and female, it's going to be sex linked or inheritance of sex. So let us get that out of the way. Just put that male female thing aside. Even though these come in male and female, our interest in male and female is when we are looking at sex link. So don't worry yourself about male and female now. Why it has to be male and female in the pedigree chart? It is because it's male and female produce offspring. And when they produce offspring, the possibility lies that they will produce both male and female. Now, if you were supposed to, it's not always even, you know. When you look at a pedigree chart, all the offsprings could be female, or all the offspring could. Come on, you don't know persons who just have pair girls, or only boys. Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's a real life thing that we've mapped onto a chart, a diagram. All right. So don't be mistaken that now that we have male and female, it has anything to do with sex link. Sex link is just a trait. All right. And like I said before, be mindful of the trait. All right. So the first thing you need to identify the trait. Now, what we know is that the trait, if it is dominant, not seeing the diagram. Which of the diagram? This is the recessive. You don't need to worry though, just look at the video when the video comes out. The video will have everything here well all explained and animated and probably with examples. All right. So what we know about the dominant trait is that if it is dominant, If it is dominant, it will not skip a generation. If it is recessive, it will skip a generation. Just a reminder, if you want to like, share, and subscribe and all this fancy dancy, you need to have a YouTube account. So if you're trying and it's not working, it's because you don't have a YouTube account. So you need to just sign up and get a YouTube account. It's very, very free. And if you go to my channel, you'll see a video there that shows you pretty much how to sign up and subscribe, and of course how to get these things. Remember, when you like a video, it goes to your YouTube account playlist, so that you don't have to scour somebody's channel to find the video that you want. You could just go to this like playlist and find the videos that you said that you like. Hi Jawa, when you're late, I don't know, you'll have to watch a replay and the video that comes out on Tuesday. All right, very good. So we looked just now at dominant, and we also looked at recessive, and we looked at how they will represent themselves in the family tree or on the pedigree chart. Just one more reminder: if it's a dominant trait, it will not skip any generation. If it's a recessive trait, it will skip a generation, or it has the ability to skip a generation. It has that ability to skip a generation. I don't want to say that it won't skip any generation. It has the ability to skip a generation, but that's not the same for dominant. All right. Hi, oh, Jawawan, we missed you for a while. Yes, Jawawan, Tanisha, Otisha. Very good. All right. Good, good. All right. So we are now moving to something else. We're not doing a lot of solving things today, you know. I lay in the framework so that when I throw it on you, you can't say, "Damn on your wicked demon." No, I don't want to say that. I want to ensure that you can follow. So we're going to be looking now at sexlink. We're going to be looking at the sexlink versus the autosomal trait. So you know that a trait could be dominant or recessive, or the trait could be sexlink or autosomal. If it is sexlink, it is the XX and the XY. And if it is autosomal, then it's the other chromosomes. You know that we've touched that already. All right. So if it is sex-linked, what is going to happen is that the trait will manifest itself in the males, usually only. If it is an X-link, remember that we could have Y-link, but we are doing X-link for CXC. So when you see it like this, where it manifests itself in the male, then this tells us if all the males have this thing and the females don't have it, then we know, or it doesn't show up in the female, then it suggests that this is a sex-link inheritance. Sex-link inheritance. Beautiful. Then there's also the autosomal trait, like your ears, ear attachment. This is autosomal, and it is also a recessive allele. So if the ear is detached like mine, then of course it is dominant. It's a dominant trait. But if it were to be attached, like you would have seen in my variation video, then that would have been the recessive allele. Now, and you know that you are going to inherit that recessive allele with the double or the homozygous recessive state, double small letter. I keep saying small letter for those persons who are not familiar with the big words as yet. Sir, can I see the diagram again, please? All right, which of the diagram? I'm showing you so many diagrams. All right, so this is a sex link. You observe the males alone, they are showing the trait, and the females seems to be all nice and dandy. It's a possibility that they are carriers, but definitely they are not positive for the trait. So if you observe, they are not all shaded. However, the males, they are shaded because it's a sex link, and only the male is pretty much dominant here. Only the males are affected here. Then there is the autosomal trait, and in the autosomal trait, what you're going to find is that both males and female would be affected. So if you look at this, both male and female are affected, right? So this is the autosomal versus the sex link. In the sex link, let me just show you them. In the sex link, you observe it's male alone. In the autosomal, you will observe that it is male and female. I do hope that we have that. It will come out in the video on Tuesday. All these diagrams will be there, animated and well explained. No need to worry. All right. So it is time for us. We have about 10 minutes left in the show. Oh, the one that showed the recessive, that was long ago. Well, two of these the recessive one. Yeah, all right. Recessive. All right, so this is recessive. You observe that it skipped a generation. All right, good. We have just about 9 minutes, so we have a few things to do within that short time. All right, beautiful. So now we're going to be looking at, we're going to try to solve a problem with the pedigree chart. And it's going to be a very simple one, very simple one. So we're going to be looking at the earlobe, which is autosomal and recessive. Autosomal means that it's not connected to the sex cell. It's a regular body cell. And recessive, meaning that in order to acquire the trait, it must be acquired in the homozygous recessive format. That is too little. I don't always like to say too little letters are too common letters, because when we are looking at sickle cell anemia and we are using HB capital S or N, in that case it's not really small. So that is why we always say that you must define your allele. So pay attention to the allele to see what it is that is represented. So in this case, I defined my allele, and this is how I defined my allele. I said, let A be dominant. So capital A here represents the dominant allele. Let common A be recessive. So common A represents the recessive allele. But I could choose to use capital B. I could say let capital B be the recessive allele. So it's very important that the alleles are defined when you are doing any one of these genetic crosses or diagrams. And of course, remember, you must know which one is dominant. You must know which one is recessive. So here, the trait that we're studying for this pedigree chart is a recessive allele. The recessive allele is pretty much attached earlobe. So what we want to do, the dominant allele would represent the unattached earlobe. The dominant allele represents unattached earlobe, while the recessive allele represents attached earlobe. And just a reminder here, while in basic genetics, we talk about earlobe having attached and detached, there might very well be some that are in between. All right? There might be some that you really can't really determine whether they are attached or unattached. So just bear that in mind as you move further in genetics. Now, what I want you to do for this genetic diagram, I want you to write the genotype and phenotype of a following family tree. So remember, we defined the letter capital A to be dominant, the letter common A, capital A to be dominant, common A to be recessive, and we are looking at attached and detached earlobe. Now, if it is dominant, the person will have unattached earlobe, and if it is recessive, the person will have attached earlobe. So you are going to tell me this, I left this off, just let me just write this in. So usually all members are usually numbered. So we have 4 members here, and this is a very simple one, 2 generation. So look at this generation here, and I want you to write the phenotype and genotype for the members of this family. Please pay close attention. All right, so you're writing the genotype and the phenotype for this family. All right, I'm going to remove it now. Good. Go right away for me and get that done. We did variation. We did variation already. There's a video or two videos on the channel. If you go to the description below the video you are watching and click show more, you will see the hyperlink or the link that will take you to the genetics lessons that we have done. Once you click on it, would have opened, you will see the different videos we have done to the right of your screen. You can select which of those you want to watch. But we have done variation. We have done, I think, no less than 2 videos on variation. So what we're going to be doing after genetics, we are going to be looking at natural selection and artificial selection. We're going to get into mutation and that type of a thing. And then we are pretty close to the end of the syllabus for some people. All right, so your answer for what I showed you just now, I showed you this, and I want genotype and phenotype for all members of the family. All right, and this is a simple pedigree chart, mother and father, and they have 2 children. Sir, not seen properly. All right, beautiful. All right, so I wait on that. And then we are going to be looking at probably just one more. And then that should take us to the end of the show for this evening. I had 2 things lined up for you, but I am not going to be able to do that as we are out of time. All right, so I will just give you this one. Let me just write this one for you. And then all right, so as you solve, I am preparing the other question for you. All right, so we are ready for the other question. All right, so there are 9 members of this family, and that's how we're going to bring the show to an end. I'm not too sure. If you have been watching, you would have realized I would have at some point in time looked at a number of recessive allele. We looked at widow's peak. We looked at a number of allele. We looked at widow's peak. We looked at hitchhiker's thumb. We looked at the tendon here. We looked at a whole lot of stuff when we started variation. We looked at purse fold in the hand, clasp in the hand. Not too sure how long you've been around, but we have done that. I'll put it on the screen again. But like I said, this lesson will be in PowerPoint. So if you're not able to get it now, you'll be able to see the lesson on Tuesday. We are pretty much out of time. It's 1 hour now. So it seems that we'll have to pick up on Wednesday when we next meet. All right, so phenotype, attached earlobe. So let me get that before we go. I don't know what number. Nobody's answering? Oh, wow. So nobody understands? My. I feel bad. I showed you everything and no one understands. Oh my, that's bad. That's like I didn't teach. Because I taught you everything and now I gave you the simplest thing and no one answers, which means that this was a probably failed class. I'll answer. If we're using A, and this is a recessive allele, then this must be two common A's because recessive allele can only be acquired in its homozygous recessive state. Now, if this is affected and this is affected and this is affected, all three would have the same allele. So first thing we want to do, we want to write these down. Then the other thing, if this is double E and these are all affected, what will be the, so these are all attached earlobe, attached earlobe, attached earlobe, attached earlobe. So our problem is going to be the unattached earlobe. Now, there are a number of possibilities, and let us work that out to see what it could be. So we could start by saying, all right, we know already that the mother, the genotype for the mother is two small e's. So I'm going to draw my pedigree chart very quickly. We know that mom is two small e. We're sure of that. We are also sure that this dad could not be homozygous dominant, because if dad was homozygous dominant, then all the offspring would have been heterozygous. Let me show you. I'm going to solve dad being homozygous dominant, and look at what we're going to come up with. So right away, we know that dad is not homozygous dominant. And to be homozygous dominant, what it means is that dad would have two big E's. So we know that dad is not homozygous dominant. All right? We know that dad is not homozygous dominant. But we also know that in order for the offsprings to have homozygous recessiveness, full recessiveness, then they must have gotten a little e from dad. So that easily solved. We could just go now and say, okay, we figure out that if dad is not homozygous dominant, let me show you, this is going to be a little tricky. Dad up here, let me solve very quickly. So we know mom is what? That is always easy. So we're going to put dad as big E, little e, and we know that that is going to be that is going to be that is going to be big E, little e, that is going to be big E, little e. All right. So being that, here you would have found out that dad could have been heterozygous, because here we are finding the little e. We have little e, and remember, it's not the same time that these kids were born. So one possibility is that dad could be big E, little e. While mom is little e, all the others are little e. We know that. All right? So this is one possibility for dad. Now let us solve another possibility for dad. Could dad be, oh no, that is the only thing. Why that is the only thing? Dad could not be homozygous dominant, or else all the offspring would have been heterozygous. Dad is not homozygous recessive, because if dad was homozygous recessive, then this square would have been all cross-hatched or stippled or pretty much looking like this. The fact that it is not looking like this, the only two things that could have happened is that it could have been heterozygous or homozygous dominant. It is not homozygous dominant, because if it is homozygous dominant, then it would not have skipped here. One of these would have to be dominant. Remember that I showed you that law? One of these would have to be dominant, and none is dominant. So right away, without even working, we could apply that law that we had before, and we know that dad here is heterozygous for attached earlobe. So, okay, we're looking at A. Sorry, I was using E. E can be used or A. It doesn't really matter. So you have to give the number. It's not written like that this time. So for this one, you'd have to write number one. Number one would be, this is not a ratio now. Number one is going to be common A, common A. Number two is going to be big E, little e. Sorry, big A, little a. You are using A. So number two is going to be big A, little a. Number three is going to be little e, or little a, little a. And number four is also going to be little a, little a. So what you're going to have happening here, you don't understand, guys, I realize. What you're going to have happening here is that all these three will have the same genotype. All these with the streak here will have the same genotype, while this is going to be heterozygous. I encourage you to watch the video again. There's no better way to explain it than I have done just now. And if you were supposed to watch the video again, I was using E and A all over the place. But whether you use common E or capital E or A or whichever one, make sure the one that you define for your exam is the one that you use. The one I use on the paper is the one I had on the paper when I was planning the lesson. So I'm all between E and A, but I'd ask you to use A. So you're going to have three. You're going to have the mother and the two offspring having attached earlobe. That's a phenotype. While the father will have detached earlobe, because he's just a carrier of the trait, or he just has the trait. Not that he just has the trait. All right. All right, so that takes us to the end of the session today. Please be reminded to leave a comment below the video in the comments how this class went. You're going to get an animation for the pedigree chart, and that is slated to come out on Tuesday. Well, the truth is, each individual is numbered. So you want to ensure that you are given the right number, the right trait. So if number one is going to be attached earlobe or detached earlobe, you need to indicate that it is number one. Number one will be this, number two will be that, number three will be that. This is not a case of looking at fraction and percentage and ratio anymore. It is pretty much a look at an individual. Are you going to marry to this individual based on what is reflected on or in the pedigree chart? All right, so that is what it is all about. If you have not gotten everything, I trust that when you watch this video again and go over the examples that I have done, then you should be fine. Like I've already said several times, you will be getting an animation come Tuesday on this lesson, and you can replay it however many times you wish and do the practice. You're going to get all the practice questions that were slated for this class and more in that lesson. All right, so take care until then. Be reminded to leave a comment below this video, and of course there is a link to other genetic videos below. All right, so until next time, take care.